based on reports. So what really is the best treatment? Well, what they have found too is that it very much is linked with the more complex the tasks are, the more involved, the poorer the child's concentration becomes, the more they doubt themselves, the more frustrated they become, and the less likely they are to focus too. So it's almost like a cascading event. It's like they can't focus, then they get frustrated, they can't focus, and they focus even less. Then the parents get angry and frustrated with them. So it's almost like a cycle, and then they get more upset. So how do we break that cycle? Well, what they try to do is create these IEPs, like Bill was talking about, where they'll say, okay, so let's break this down. Maybe instead of saying that you have to go home tonight and read 20 pages and write a 3-page book report on it, maybe you're going to just read the first 5 pages and write a paragraph. Break things down to make it simpler tasks that they can achieve, that's easily achievable. I mean, this is what they tell everybody. They always say, like, if you go home tonight and say, well, I'm going to read 2 chapters, and then you don't get through those 2 chapters, you beat yourself up. You're really upset with yourself, like, oh, I wanted to read those 2 chapters, I had to get that done. But they say, don't give yourself these goals you're never going to be able to reach, right? Because that's just going to frustrate you and get you more upset and even depressed. So in this case, too, they say, make it smaller, manageable tasks. So again, it's got to be behavioral keyed in with it.
I was going to say that's an issue for teachers now, too, because the big thing today is inclusion, not exclusion. So they the class includes the kids.
Yes.
Instead of having a special class for kids with ADHD or whatever, they include them. So some classes can be like, out of maybe 30 kids, you may have like 6, 7 kids with several different IEPs and different, okay, you don't need to, you can do this much, you can do this much, but the rest of the class is going at a certain pace, and it becomes nearly impossible to
It's very hard for teachers.
to balance it out, because then you have most of the kids are way ahead of the other kids, and you're discussing things that the other kids haven't read yet, and then there's still, it just ends up.
Many people, and the other disadvantage too is, you have teachers who are special needs certified, who have that background, and then ones that are just elementary education certified. So now you're pulling in, many special needs, and sometimes it's like saying I'm a peds nurse, but now I'm taking care of geriatric patients, which might not be my area. I might have learned about it in school, but it's not truly my area. So yes, there's a big struggle in schools, and the schools are overfilled many times. And again, that goes along with socioeconomic status, because when you go to areas that don't have as many resources, they're going to have more children and more inclusion. So it does become tough all around. And that's why too, sometimes you really need the family to help. And then if they're not there, and they're not meeting halfway and helping, that can be difficult too. And then you have the pharmacotherapy, which is Ritalin, Dexedrine, Adderall, all of these, and there's many new ones too, even ones that are directed toward adult ADHD as people get older, which they do say many times there's been a drop-off. Like they like that somewhere around that 25, 30. Like if you look at the trend, it's at 25 and 30 it starts to drop off. And what they think is not that the person really truly got rid of the ADHD, but that they just learned how to manage it in their lives better, either with medicine, without medicine, but they've really learned how to manage it better. What I can say about these medications is that they are highly, highly marketable right now. They're one of these meds that are out there being sold, almost like the oxycodones and the pain medications. These are up there too. Because, I have to study for an exam that's coming up, so I'm going to take this. Because I find it keeps me up all night, and it helps me to focus more, and keeps me up all night. Better than taking, 10 cups of coffee. So, not the healthy thing to do, and certainly not, but they are highly, they're one of the most abused drugs up there, along with things like the pain medications too. On college campuses, they were getting like $20 a pill for these. So I don't know what the current going things, but again, one of those things that they have to, really have to be careful.
I have a question. Does the illegal use of these drugs, does that drive up the price for the legal use? Meaning, would
do they cost more for people to buy?
Yeah, in the prescription, like if they try and get a prescription.
No, but one of the hopes is that, now that we are going to a computerized healthcare system all throughout, that's obviously what everybody's got to go to, all the doctors, all the hospitals, that this will be easier managed. Because what was happening is that, people who were truly abusing it and selling it and doing things like this were people who were going to a clinic to get it. Maybe I'm going to the clinic somewhere down the road to get, then I also have a doctor that's giving me a prescription, and many times going to different pharmacies, it was hard to really track some of this that was going on. Whereas now with computerized documentation of medical records, it's one of these things where, it pops up and, Stephanie, you were digitally, and you know what I'm saying? So everybody's kind of more open access with healthcare providers, and they can see these things. That being said, you know, a lot of these prescription medications are the ones that are being, people are becoming addicted to, and people are abusing in these sort of ways. Not to say that, you know, everybody who's taking this is abusing, I'm just saying that, you know, it is one of the drugs that are being sold illegally out there. Pain medications, obviously, the other big one.
I think if you need them, you're not, like, typically people abusing them are not the ones that actually need it.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
'Cause you really can't, like, if you take it to help you focus, well, if you really can't focus and you took it, you're not really abusing it, because that's exactly what it's for. Like, people that take it or sell their own prescriptions or buy it when they don't have a prescription, but, like, it's not like pain medication where usually you build a tolerance and then you become the abuser when you have a prescription.
Right.
Like,
Well, I think the issue is it's not meant to be like, I have a late night that I have to do tonight, so I'm gonna use it that way.
and you're supposed to get it.
Correct, that's right. So, and there are people who will do that. There are people who will say, you know, Stephanie, if you have this because I really need to stay up tonight and study. That's not the way it's meant to be taken. You know, it's meant to be taken where, you know, you're taking it every day, at the same time every day in the morning, because it does have a long life. So if you take it in the afternoon or later in the day, I mean, I knew somebody who was in college that would take it when they would wake up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'd be up all night. You know, so again, that's where you throw the sleep off, what you're talking about. It's gotta be given at the same time, early morning, every day, you know, with the dosing, and then it works effectively. And that's the key with that. Autism is another spectrum disorder. Autism, another spectrum disorder, pervasive developmental disorder, with a range of what you can see in the diagnosis. So for example, I don't know if anybody's seen that movie Rain Man from like the 80s with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, and you know, where that was his brother. He had very severe, what they call autistic savant, very severe autism, where many times, and again, it's multiple levels that are actually affected. When we talk about some of the levels, it's physical, social language skills, abnormal responses to body sensations, the thinking capacity, and abnormal ways of relating to people and events. But usually extremely, extremely intelligent in one area. So, and they usually have like a passion for one area. Like might be planes, and they're really drawn and attracted to planes. Or maybe like in the case of this Rain Man, Raymond, where he really was attracted with numbers. Extremely, extremely intelligent with numbers. They could say, what's 5,334 times, you know, 253,000, and he would have the number, just spit it right out. Like, so again, and then there are other people, and I've had patients who are, you know, again, social skills, will not make eye contact, will not speak, will not have anyone touch them or come near them, almost like they were enclosed in a glass box, but wonderful musical skills, like a concert pianist. So again, there's a range in that, and really was like, you know, wonderful, and somebody else wonderful with art. So again, you know, range of what you can see. That being said, there is the lower end of the spectrum. Asperger's syndrome is a very common diagnosis, and those are just slight. So these people might just be slightly nervous in social situations, not make eye contact, maybe have certain tics or certain, you know, start to fidget or you know, act a certain way, repeat things over and over again in social situations, and that's more like an Asperger's type syndrome. Where, again, these children are mostly mainstreamed too, but there might just be certain little things that socially, more has to do with social and language. And what parents often say, you know, again, this was the big one that they were kind of trying to link up with immunizations. And what they have found is that, obviously, you know, immunizations had no link with this. You know, there are thoughts, and obviously, like Jenny McCarthy came out, we talked about this in other lectures, and we're saying that it's diet, it's things in the, you know, in the environment or in the diet that's causing this. And they haven't really linked any one thing with it. They did show that previous research was false, that had come out from California saying it was certain mercury preservatives that were in MMR vaccines and things like this. So what they're basically saying is that the reason why, you know, many times it's not manifesting until they're older is just because the signs and symptoms you would see with this are probably present even at birth, but people are not noticing it. And that's why we're becoming better and better at diagnosing it younger even too. For example, you know, things like making eye contact, you know, holding a gaze, social smile, all these things that should be seen very early on that parents might not see, they don't always realize. You know, my friend whose son was diagnosed, it was not until she had him around other children, and he was almost 2 years old, that she really saw, because it was her first child, that she really started to see where he was not where other children were. And she said she noticed he didn't smile as much as people talked about their other babies smiling, but she just thought it was because he was a boy. You know, she said, well, maybe, you know, the girls are more, you know, because she had a friend with a daughter, and she said, well, she smiled so much more, but I thought it was because she was a girl, maybe girls are more social. You know, and he was, you know, and gross motor-wise, they develop perfectly fine. Fine motor-wise, they develop perfectly fine, you know. They walk when they're supposed to, crawling, turning, all these sort of things that we talk about all occur as they're supposed to. So sometimes that's what really can throw off the diagnosis there too.
Is the gaze with the eyes, is that right from the start? They don't, or is it later on that they develop?
No, that can be seen if they're very observant. There was a study that they did on that too. They looked at 3-month-old infants who were later diagnosed with autism. They tracked them and they said even at that age, they did not want to make eye contact or socially smile. It's almost like they had to force them, and even then they didn't want to keep the gaze. They would turn away much quicker than another infant would. Most infants observe faces and are interested with faces and want to really look at a face and make eye contact. And these infants who were later diagnosed with autism did not.